Hello and welcome back to Automation Answers. This is episode 5, I believe, or episode 6. Sat beside me is James here from StrongPoint. So James, thanks for having me on. It is a pleasure having you here. James, you're the Vice President of Automation and Robotics. How's things? How are you finding things in the market at the moment?
Really good, really busy. Pipeline is fantastic. Lots of activity in the market. We think the post-COVID market is starting to wake up. We just need to make sure we're there on the ball with conversions and staying competitive.
Absolutely. And can you talk, we'll jump into StrongPoint, your products, your solutions and what you have to offer, which I'm really excited for. But before we do so, for anyone that doesn't know, you've been in the industry a long time. Would you mind just giving a bit of a background into yourself and how you've got to where we are now?
Yeah, started my career at Asda in the UK, about 3 or 4 years with Asda, then moved to PepsiCo as a manufacturing manager. And then really after that, my career was in logistics and automation. So 9 years at Ocado as an operations manager, and then moving on to a business project manager, delivering the Dordon project, and then worked as an automation lead for the Ocado Robotics platform, supporting with Andover and Dartford, and moving that product from concept into a marketable product. After that, spent a bit of time with GXO, leading their automation team and as a senior project manager, and then started my own business and ran that for 4 years, working with different grocers in Europe, in the US and South Korea, before taking a role up with StrongPoint to lead the automation team within that team.
Awesome, good to hear. And before we jump into the main topic of the podcast and the conversation, what kind of hot trends, hot topics are you seeing in the market at the moment? We were speaking before we started filming off camera about space optimization, right? I think that's a huge player in the market, not necessarily related to grocery, but you've got Exotech with Skypod, you've got High Robotics, and you've obviously got AutoStore, which is a huge one. They seem to be really prominent on the market at the moment. So are you seeing those trends?
Yes, we're seeing lots of brownfield conversions. So definitely a prioritization from retailers and 3PLs to make the most of their existing space. Obviously, cubic storage is super hot because you obviously creating 40-50% space saving. The market's moving quite fast, technology is moving fast, and I think you've got that broad spectrum of new players with a bit of untried and untested equipment, and some of the legacy like AutoStore, who's clearly the market leader, but really continues to innovate. And the pressure from the new guys is around innovation and keeping ahead of that. So I think it's all good for the market as new technology comes on board, because it just broadens the concept and the use cases to more and more verticals and retailers.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you give us, for those that don't know about StrongPoint, you're a relatively new business in the world of automation, intralogistics. Would you mind giving an intro into the different products and portfolio that you have?
Sure, yeah. So StrongPoint are a Scandinavian business, 35 years old, listed on the Oslo Stock Exchange, 500 employees. We have we're an innovation technology provider, and we have a whole portfolio of products for retailers in terms of in-store picking, and we've recently rolling it out with Sainsbury's in the UK. We have grocery lockers and temperature-controlled lockers for click and collect orders, as well as a host of in-store technology, so self-checkout, kiosk vending machines, electronic shelf edge labels, really pushing the boundaries of innovation for retailers. We've been an AutoStore partner for 2 years, and within that time we've created 2 solutions. And over the last 12 to 18 months, we've been really building that team out, grow to a team of 5 before the end of this year, build our pipeline, create the software that goes with it, so a WCS and a WMS, and really position ourselves within grocery as a top tier vertical, but then supporting everything that goes alongside grocery. So any kind of e-commerce retailer or any 3PL that is in that area, then we're partnering and looking to resolve their solutions and provide AutoStore and non-automated solutions with them.
Brilliant. And how do you find, so you mentioned some really cool technologies that are going on within the business, obviously, especially in the grocery world, very, very low margin, high volume. How do you find that balance between investing and implementing new technologies while obviously sticking to the customer's requirement of obviously low cost?
I think the way we approach it is we like to deep dive into a retailer's operation and organisation to understand what are they trying to solve. Are they trying to solve a labour issue, a cost issue, a space issue, and then really go into deep dive to get the refinements of the business case. The beautiful thing about AutoStore and our technologies is we can scale. So if you wanted to start small in a back of store or a manual solution with a little bit of automation, we can do that all the way through to kind of bigger grids or bigger integrated automation solutions with conveyors, hanging solutions, sortation, pallet movement. We can do that full scale, but it's really working with retailers to help them with the business case and where they are in that journey. Yeah,
because I think that's quite an interesting point you touched on earlier, because I would assume, I don't necessarily know, that it can be quite daunting for a retailer or an end user that's out there, and there's a lot of different automation options that are out there that they can pick. The fact that it's a scalable solution, right? So you can start off with a back of store process, like you mentioned, and then maybe expand as it's a very scalable solution. So is that what you're seeing a lot of in the market, where they'd start small and then scale for needs?
It all depends on the journey, but we have the ability to start small and phase and really help build that strategy and transformation program with the retailer. So, we like to spend time with the product managers, project managers, transformation leaders, with the C-suite to say, where do they want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? What's the project trying to solve? Because as you know, with automation, the payback is getting shorter, but the equipment is there for 15, for 20 years. It's a generation. And the important thing for retailers and the C-suite and the leaders is being able to set the next person that comes along to be successful and to not worry about trying to fix issues from the past. It's all about making sure that it's fit for the future. And we work with those retailers to say, wherever you are in the journey, we can help you and support you. And we don't look at a project on a project by project basis. We take our time, we offer a consultative approach that enables a bit more assurance of what a retailer is buying is going to be successful for not just 3 years, 5 years, but for 20 years.
Absolutely. Awesome. And the main topic of conversation and what I'm really interested in and what we're about to discuss, StrongPoint and AutoStore have a collaboration, and you've successfully launched the world's first AutoStore frozen grid system. So would you mind going into some detail, explaining to myself and the audience how it works, and we'll go into detail about the profitability and the benefits as well.
So AutoStore have been working on the technology for a few years. We came on board just over 2 years ago, and effectively the solution allows for the world's first frozen AutoStore module to be either worked alongside an ambient and a chill model. So create a multi-temperature grid where you've got one grid, 3 different temperatures, 1 fleet of robots, and more importantly, the ports and where people work are in either an ambient or a chilled environment. So we're removing people from that awful environment of working at minus 25, having to have breaks every 45 minutes, be weighed down with lots of PPE. And that technology effectively wraps some frozen havoc technology around the grid and freezes that grid down to minus 25. And the technology effectively takes a 16 bin high grid and freezes that module. But while at the top of the grid, the temperature is run in a cooled environment. So the robots aren't exposed to anything below what they would normally be exposed to. For us, we believe it's absolutely game changing for our retailers and the logistics partners that we work with, the value and the return on investment for being able to go into a frozen warehouse or be able to plug in frozen into a micro fulfillment center just opens up the possibilities for one more efficient basket, more efficient orders, better margin, which is what we're all here for, and effectively reduce that labour cost, but increasing the capacity.
Of course, excellent. And it might be a very difficult question, but why hasn't it been done before? I'm assuming because of the complexity of putting this all together in one solution. But
yeah, it's a good question. I think automating grocery and food is the hardest vertical to automate. One, because of the margins, but two, around the sensitivities of the product. Retailers traditionally in the past have been focused on fixing front end solutions, innovating front end solutions, and really the logistics side and retail side have never really spoken. What we've seen coming out of or going into COVID and coming out of COVID is those teams are a lot more integrated, and we've seen business cases being far more joined up, where logistics and retail and e-com are now talking to each other to say, how can we better make the solution, the payback, more quicker, and then we can effectively erode or avoid that cost of not automating by making the decision quicker. So we're seeing supply chains now piece picking at logistics end. So you've got quicker to store to shelf, supply chain to shelf replenishment. We're seeing in micro fulfillment solutions where the basket is made more profitable by increasing capacity and how we transform a network. But also within that logistics space, cube going up and shrinking that square foot, getting more out of your existing warehouse, and also then that's cost saving of energy by not having to freeze a large space of fresh air to minus 25, minus 30. That's condensed to around about 40-50% of the space. Energy savings 40% less, and your efficiency in terms of operational costs, your labor costs, you're 66% more efficient, because you move from taking what a person would have had to have a break every 45 minutes, they're naturally 25% redundant, and then by plugging it into an automated picking system, you're increasing that pick productivity from 90 units per hour to anywhere up to 350 and 400 units an hour, sometimes more with some batch commonality, and getting that significant increase. Which is great because turnover's down, PPE costs are down, energy costs are down, everything about the environment is really, it's been crying out for. But it's been a hard process, and what AutoStore have done really is game changing to be able to put this technology into the market.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And just to touch on the point you mentioned there, I think the efficiency is what would excite a lot of customers. Like you mentioned, cooling or keeping a whole warehouse that's 1.5 million square foot at minus 25 degrees, 24/7, 365 days a year. Very, very costly, right? So being able to condense that into a very small grid will be massive.
Absolutely. So the 3PLs that we're in discussions with, like you say, they're taking million square foot warehouses where they're blowing significant amount of money of cold air into a building. You shrink that down not only to 40% for the same space, but you now create more space that can either be ambient or chilled, as well as reducing that energy cost and the retention. So significant game changer in the market. And we're seeing a significant amount of demand from retailers and 3PLs across the world about the technology. And it's a technology that we haven't officially launched it yet, and that will come later on in the summer. But when it does get launched officially, we see the demand, exponential opportunity. The use cases are really game changing, as I've said a number of times, for the market and for the retailers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there obviously the productivity, especially, I recruit obviously a lot in the frozen environments, a lot with the 3PLs, but New Cold, Americold, really bringing some interesting solutions to their customers. But it's very, very hard to attract labour or attract anyone to work in a warehouse in minus 25, even though obviously from a health and safety point of view, you've got the regular breaks, you've got 3 jackets on, you've got your thermals on, you've got your boots. That's very, very hard to motivate people, no matter really what the money is, to work at minus 25 degrees, right?
It is. And having worked as a student in a frozen environment, your hat's frozen, your fingers are frozen, you go into a war room, everything gets soaking wet, you go back out, and by the time you finish your 9-hour shift, your eyebrows are frozen, your eyelashes are frozen. and it takes you a good hour or so to warm up, and the retention is really poor that we've seen for 25, 30, 35 years. What you then see to try and fix that is a high rate of pay within a frozen environment, as well as the less productivity. So highest paid labour, least productive, and also the highest energy cost. So significant opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And even like you say, when you're raising that pay, obviously, like we mentioned before, very, very low margin, high volume business, that's going to impact the EBIT at the end of the day. And then you've still got that natural retention, because I don't know what the retention is in these businesses, but I wouldn't want to work in the coal for longer than probably 2-3 years myself. I can't speak on behalf of everyone.
Yeah, we would. I mean, when we're working with the retailers, we're seeing, maybe in traditional non-frozen retention being somewhere between 5, 7, 10%. You go into freezer, sometimes it's 15, 20, 25% retention. You try and churn through that, all the cost of training, the efficiency drop that you get from that. Then trying to have to manage peak, and you're throwing people into a frozen environment that have never really worked in a frozen environment, don't even want to work in a frozen environment, but needs must, and products need to be out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think game changing and cost and margin will probably be a theme of this podcast. But moving on to sort of the ROI and the profitability of such solution in a warehouse environment, how do you guys tackle that, and what's the benefits?
So we're seeing ROI somewhere between 3 and 5 years, and it very much dependent on the space saving and how much automation that you can plug in. So one of the technologies we use is robotic decanting. So we remove the need for people to be standing decanting. So we decant cases using robotic arms and AI technology, and that's sold in as a robotic as a service platform. And then all we do, obviously, with the cube, that's managing itself. And then all really the operations have to do is have that pick technology, and that can be in a chilled environment, whether it's either batched or picked by order. So we work with the different opportunities and different business case inputs to be able to help that ROI. So scale that flexible automation to say you can start very manual, but everything that we try to do and the AutoStore ports are built around, can we plug robotic arms in? Can we plug AMRs in? Or even conveyors? And then how does that integrate with the existing operation?
Yeah, of course.
But we're seeing very quick ROI for a space that has never really had automation before, that's crying out for automation. So again, we believe that if you're not already talking to us, then as the product becomes launched in the market, then it's something that every retailer should be considering. Certainly, just to understand the business case of the cost of not doing something versus the cost of doing something.
Absolutely. And do you see the potential, like you mentioned, obviously, different sort of AGVs, AMRs, pick and piece technologies that you're going to integrate or collaborate with the full solution? Where do you see the future for different integrations and different technologies around your primary focus?
Yeah, I think we're seeing definitely a move away from conveyors as automation gets smaller, as it's more flexible, as it's more movable. The rigidness of fixing a conveyor down and the cost of conveyors at the moment seems to not be as attractive as what it was.
Yeah.
AMR is becoming more cost efficient, more battery capacity. And the use cases of the AMR providers, so being able to go in and pick a tote up or pick an order up and then move it somewhere else very quickly, effectively takes that need of conveyors away, and having that fleet of robots to effectively do that tote move, do that order move, feeding into a sorter, even feeding into a dolly or the final mile solution. It all helps with the productivity and drives alongside this automation, because previously a lot of the additional technology couldn't work in a frozen environment. So you're talking now where you're opening up the frozen sector to be able to work with all the automation providers and technology that's out there, because previously they couldn't work in -25. You remove that, work it in a +3, +5 environment,
Yeah.
and then open it up to new types of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really interesting point. So obviously there's only, not a few, but there's limited amount of automation providers that you can, especially when you got the use of AI that's coming in and the robotics. They're very, very intricate technologies. I'm assuming not many of them can work at minus 25 all of the time, right? So I think that's a really big point and a really good example. Obviously, Canap are a huge, huge organization. I think only recently they've developed their OSRs to work in frozen temperatures, and they're one of the biggest players in the game. So it's obviously very, very difficult to do that. So the fact that that need is, or that problem is completely removed, makes it a lot easier for your customers and yourselves.
Absolutely. And the Canap shuttle system is fantastic. I worked with Canap a few years ago where they started talking about that frozen capability, and it does take a long time to get there because some of the components might need to change, some of the calculations on optimization and efficiency need to change, then all the simulation engines need to change as well, and that impacts all the upstream. So are you passing a tote that's at minus 25 that could get condensation onto pieces of equipment that can't absorb that? So the technology we've created, or that's been created, removes all that condensation in the environment to ensure that there's no moisture that is effectively left on the equipment, to protect the equipment, and then effectively create the upstream optimization of plugging in everything else that ambient and chilled environments have been able to use for 10, 15, 20 years. We can take that frozen environment and now move it on a par with the technology that's been used previously. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a point we obviously on the subject of cost, which will be a common theme, as I mentioned, I don't know if there's a battle, if that's fair to say. There's a race to secure warehouse space in optimal locations, throughout Europe, but obviously in the UK where we are at the moment. So being able to condense, like you say, a solution from a million and a half square foot warehouse, reduce that by 40%. How do you see that playing out in the future as a benefit? Yeah, so we're working with a number of players across Europe. All have reached capacity in their urban environments or very close to city centre environments. Take, for example, Milton Keynes area in the UK, where warehouse space is absolutely saturated. Come along with a solution that gives you 40, 50% of space back and more capacity and a lower labour cost. The business case, it becomes almost common sense to be able to switch that on, especially in the 3PL world where multi-tenant environments, multi-client environments, you start to think, okay, how else can I use that space? Can I transform it into something else? And even with retailers, we're looking at retailers selling their space, almost operating as a 3PL because that space gets created. Not necessarily enough logistics volume within their own network to do it, so they can 3PL that out themselves and use that as storage. So we see it, definitely that demand for space isn't going to go away, but optimizing that space is going to be better. And then the revenue opportunities that creates by shrinking that space in terms of increased capacity or increased revenue from new clients. Yeah, of course. And you mentioned previously the consultative approach that your business and yourself, you take to really assist customers throughout the journey. Is there, in terms of the road mapping and planning out where their logistics hubs need to be in relation to their customers, being in cities, being outside of cities, do you collaborate with your retailers or your customers, to pick the best solution? Is that part of your service? Yeah, absolutely. Having been on the other side of the fence, there's nothing more frustrating than going through data analysis and a playback with an integrator, and they haven't thought about site 2, site 3, what if? And it's because they haven't spent that time getting in closer to the operation and understanding the business and understanding the strategic transformation that a business needs to go through over the next 20, 25 years to ensure they're successful, not just on the basis of this project, but in the future. And we work really closely with understanding the operation, understanding the supply chain, take every input and every heartbeat of the business from start to finish, almost from farm or production all the way through to the final point of it touching the customer, and say, this is how we can support, or this is where you need to transform, or the impact of doing this means there's a negative or positive impact of doing this. It's absolutely pointless trying to automate a process if you hand over to another process that either is slower than the automation. So you're just creating a buffer of manual movement, or even worse, create a problem downstream that doesn't integrate the solution particularly well. So do you create a problem because you're creating more parts of an order because it's having to come from multiple different automation to then plug it into a consolidated or manual system? So we really try and work very closely with all levels of retailers and 3PLs to ensure that from start to finish, we're able to demonstrate where the benefit is of each part of their supply chain and where automation can work or shouldn't work. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's important as well of just not automating for the sake of it, right? You don't want it to become a commodity and go, right, we're going to spend millions on X robotics or AutoStore solution because it's cool and our end customers might like the look of it or the sound of it. It sounds sustainable, it sounds cool. There actually needs to be stability, there needs to be a roadmap, and there needs to be a long-term strategy behind it, I'm assuming, right?
Definitely. And we joked before that, there's some good use case examples across the US and across Europe where over automation and unnecessary automation has been sold in. And really it's heartbreaking when as an industry leader you go and see that, because it negates the good work and the hard work that other people do. We're trying to say, you don't need to automate that. You don't need that process, because the benefit of cost versus output isn't really, your ROI is 10, 15, 20 years. Now, it's great if there's capital there and people want to go and do that and spend that money on innovation. But if you're cost focused and you're looking at what to do now, but ensure the future's fixed, it's around that scalability and flexibility and not spending 25, 30 million, 40 million, 100 million euros on a solution that gets to 20 years old before it's reached capacity, because that doesn't help anyone.
Absolutely, yeah. And where do you see the next 5, 10 years in the grocery with your solution specifically and in general?
So we're definitely, there's a lot of noise around micro fulfillment and the viability of it. I personally think there's a real lack of knowledge to support retailers, understand the SKU range that goes in, the efficiency that comes out, the other solutions that work around it. So knowledge is power. Knowledge is key, but able to show different types of technologies and able to almost roadshow to say, if you did this technology, this would be the output. It may be a lower cost, but a lower efficiency. Or you go with this output that is higher cost, higher efficiency, higher SKU range. Or you go gold plated to say, here's everything automated, AMRs, humanoids, everything that can touch and almost become a frictionless, humanless environment. A dark micro fulfillment center is going to cost you this. But there's a big leap to go from maybe let's just start with an ambient grid or a chilled grid to get to that frictionless, fully automated solution. That as a journey will happen, and we're talking to enough retailers to know that automation will continue to grow. As a demand for automation, we're seeing this year all the way through to 2030 projects coming along that is enough assurance that the demand is there, that the technology is there. It's just finding the right time for the retailer to go and make that purchase.
Excellent. And I think concluding the podcast with my final question, nothing related to robotics or automation at all. It's a little tradition that we have here. So you mentioned obviously based in the Nordics, you're in the UK, you've done projects in South Korea, US. Where's the favourite place you've been and where's your favourite food come from?
Favourite food's an easy one. I like my food, but favourite food is definitely sushi.
Okay.
And I think favourite place I've visited would be a combination of probably Tallinn and Oslo. Okay. But I'm lucky enough to see many parts of Europe, and travelling and working with different retailers and different geographies and different cultures is a fantastic part of my job and my team. And that helps us grow as a group of individuals. But yeah, I would say sushi is an easy answer.
Good, nice stuff. Excellent. Well, that concludes the podcast. So I appreciate everyone watching or listening. James, absolute pleasure having you on. I know you're super busy. Thanks for allowing the time. And we'll catch you guys very soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cheers.